Last resort. There isn't an agony worse than the poignant anguish delivered by hunger. It's not a pain one can adapt to. Rather, it acts as an ever-repeating beacon, constantly emphasizing a yearning for even the slightest bit of sustenance. The pain starts with a rumble in the pit of your gut, before creeping throughout every fiber of your being, then settling its treacherous grasp into every wrinkle of your mind. Starvation begins life as an annoyance, a pesky obstacle always diverting rational thoughts. Once famine takes your mind, it cultivates a darkness ready to sacrifice your humanity, a desire to satiate the primitive impulse. I've witnessed what such hunger can do to a man. Even worse, what it does to tens of thousands of people left roaming the streets of Detroit. In the wake of devastation following the reset, the city faced one calamity after another. The anarchy led by radical mobs was only a meager complication at first. Emergency services did what they could to quell the infighting, though they were not active for long. It became apparent that the city was standing on its last legs when we realized there was no external assistance coming to aid our plight. Every aspect of what made our lives convenient was quickly stripped away from us. The endless stream of trucks carrying essential supplies like food, water, medicine, and gasoline were no more. There was a mad dash for what few resources remained, with a few groups hoarding entire warehouses of goods. Not long after, the entire city faced a blackout as the power plants that supplied us were shut down. Without power, the pumps that carried drinkable water were also off. The only source of fresh water in town came from Lake St. Clair and the Detroit River, but even that was sketchy at best. One of the best places to get water was the most overlooked: water heaters. They were tanks of pure gold, with every home, apartment, and business having one, yet remained hidden from all but the ingenious of eyes. I spent many months rummaging abandoned parts of the city for food. Without gas, I could only make it so far on foot, so Owen and I left our apartment behind, resting wherever we felt was safest. Things became so dire, I allowed the animal in me to beat others over what few sources of food they had. Whenever we came across a cat or a dog, I made sure to kill it. The notion of it once being someone's pet didn't matter anymore. Their meat was better left in our full bellies than roaming the streets. Owen would often object to how we obtained food, but the hunger struck him regardless of his animosity. We were playing a game of survival, and that meant doing the ugly things that kept us alive. These dirty deeds dampened his spirit, but he mustered through it, knowing that for the time being, this was the only way to survive. Although we tried to endure the hardships set before us, there was no way to escape the misery invoked by our impending famishment. The longing for food had become so severe, it weakened our bodies as malnourishment sapped all available energy reserves within us. It felt as though we were to meet our end, unceremoniously trapped in a decaying city where only vultures conquered the upheaval aroused by the reset. We faced hard times only to be confronted by hard choices. I left Owen to rest while I investigated our surroundings for anything remotely edible. Carried on the warm summer wind was the distinct scent of grilled meat that pricked at my nostrils and salivated my mouth. Had the hunger grown so great that I had begun to hallucinate smells? I pressed forward with each step, a strenuous labor towards the inviting aroma. It was then I found a saving grace that would damn my soul. Before me was a small group gathered around a fire pit with large slabs of meat roasting above it, fat liquefying and basting in the heat and smoke. It was glorious food, more than we had seen in weeks. I remained hidden. If anything was certain, it was that other people were not to be trusted, especially when food was involved. Once they had their fill and wandered away from the makeshift grill, it granted me a brief moment to gather what scraps remained. I scarfed down the charred morsel of meat with a quickness. The small serving didn't taste like anything I ever had before, but it was enough to silence the screams from my gut, if only for a moment. I wasn't a fool. I pieced it together quickly. This group found abundance where there was only wasted potential. They knew it had to be done for their own survival, a thought that routinely echoed in the back of my mind. This was the price of survival, to eat the flesh of man. although the very idea of indulging in thoughts of cannibalism disgusted me. The succulent taste of meat was enough to leave those thoughts palatable. When I returned to Owen, I presented him with a sample of the group's leftovers. Without a word spoken, he knew what this was and refused to consume it. No matter how much I begged and pleaded, he rejected my offering. He preferred to perish from this world with his humanity intact, rather than survive another day at the expense of losing his soul to the consumption of a fellow man. I had done this boy wrong his entire life, and upon his final moments, left him with a final impression of my accumulated failures. There was nothing left for me in Detroit. I gave my son a final farewell in a shallow grave, the deepest my aching bones would allow me to dig. The heartache was too much for me to bear, but I couldn't bring myself to end my own life. Despite everything that transpired, I had too much fight left in me to give up. I know I'll never be able to shake the feeling of being better off dead, but I'll carry on all the same. Perhaps one day I'll find a way to forgive my own sins, but my soul will be forever lost having dined on the flesh of another.